Hi everyone, it's Kait here with SkeenaWild with a North Coast Fisheries update for the third week of July 2026. We've got a lot to cover in this video, so if you've got a short attention span, a few key things you might want to know. The Skeena steelhead return, while early, is off to a strong start. The Skeena sockeye return, which looked strong early on, has since dropped off and is around average and trending downwards. There have been a lot of commercial fishery openings and effort directed at Skeena sockeye in the marine approach waters, so we're going to dive into that. And pink salmon fishing and returns have been extremely poor throughout the North Coast and Southeast Alaska. And while this isn't always top of mind for everyone, it has huge implications for not only fisheries but our ecosystems as well, as pink salmon are an important source of food for our wildlife and nutrients for the forest. Beyond that, we're going to look at other species and returns in the Nass. So let's get started. Okay, so we're switching things up and starting off with Skeena steelhead, which have started returning to the river and usually peak through the Tyee test fishery over the next 3 weeks. The province sent out their first steelhead update indicating a positive start to the return, well above average, initially ranking around the 10th highest year for steelhead on record. The daily catch at the Tyee has picked up in the past few days, and as of July 22nd, 8,400 steelhead are estimated to have passed the Tyee, compared to an average of 3,750 for that date. This is looking promising for summer run Skeena steelhead this year, which, as a reminder, have experienced low returns below the threshold identified for conservation concern in 6 of the last 7 years, including 3 of the lowest returns on record. It is still early, and it's important also to keep in mind that the Tyee is quite a coarse estimate for steelhead abundance and does not factor in catchability, which varies both in season and year to year. And it also gives no indication of the abundance of different steelhead populations within the Skeena watershed. The Skeena sockeye return started out appearing quite strong, but as you can see from daily escapement at the Tyee, the run has really dropped off, at a time when it's usually peaking. There was a strong return of 5-year-olds early on, but the 4-year-old component of the run that was expected this year has not materialized. In addition to what that means for this year's return, it's important to think about what that could mean for sockeye returns in the coming years as well. As of July 22nd, an estimated 985,000 or so sockeye have passed the Tyee, which is right around average or still just slightly above average. And the current total return size estimate for sockeye ranges from 1.8 to 4.5 million, with a point estimate of 2.7 million, and continues to trend downward. Between the commercial gillnet, seine, and marine demonstration fisheries, commercial fishing for sockeye has been open every day since July 8th in the Skeena marine approach waters. This heavy fishing effort could have negative implications for wild sockeye populations of conservation concern throughout the Skeena that co-migrate with the more abundant enhanced populations returning to the Babine spawning channels. It also leads to more impacts on bycatch species, Skeena coho, chum, Chinook, and steelhead, which must be released, but experience high post-release mortality rates in the fishery. Possession of non-retention species is also a common violation cited by DFO Conservation and Protection, or CMP, fishery officers in this fishery, among other violations that influence survival of bycatch and fishery management decisions. Additionally, the numbers that are available are industry reported, and while there is a third-party fishery observer program in this fishery, the information from that program is not made publicly available. In this year's fisheries management plan, DFO identified August 8th as the last possible date for commercial openings for Skeena sockeye, but concerns for later time sockeye populations of concern and Skeena chum, coho, and steelhead increase over the next couple of weeks. In the lower Skeena River, Kitsalis Nation is selectively fishing for sockeye using fish wheels in Kitsalis Canyon, while releasing all other species unharmed. Unfortunately, boat wakes create serious safety risk for the crews and can damage the fish wheels. There's new signage going up this weekend. If you're boating in the river, please reduce your speed and avoid wakes when passing the fish wheels. Recreational fishing for Skeena sockeye also opened in marine waters and the Skeena main stem on July 10th this year to be aligned with a commercial fishery opening. We often get asked questions about the recreational regulations, so we've added some links to our website to help find that information, which we'll go over where to find at the end of this video. I mentioned in a previous update that there were new marine recreational regulations for gear going into effect this year. However, the start date has been pushed to September 1st. We're at the tail end of the Skeena Chinook return, which remained well below average this year as expected and fairly similar to the past several years. The preseason forecast anticipated a return of about 33,000 Chinook. And while the Tyee index is similar to last year, there is no in-season return estimate publicly available for Chinook just yet, so we won't have an escapement estimate until after the season. It's still a bit early for Skeena chum, coho, and pink salmon through the Tyee. However, early indications are looking positive for chum compared to recent years, which have been at extremely low abundance and of conservation concern for several decades. Pink salmon, on the other hand, are coming in below average despite a strong return of pinks in 2024, which is the parent year for this year's return. And the low abundance of pink salmon appears to be a trend throughout the entire north coast this year. In southeast Alaska, where the purse seine fishery typically harvests tens of millions of pink salmon each year, pink fishing has been so poor this season, it is closed in the south-southeast districts of 1 to 4 this week. And the fishery is focused on hatchery farm chum returns, which will begin to ease off soon. This once again demonstrates that the Alaska Department of Fish and Game does manage their fisheries very well with respect to concerns over Alaskan salmon stocks, despite not giving salmon populations migrating through to BC the same considerations. In the Nass Marine approach, pink salmon fishing has also been very poor, and there were only a few pink-directed commercial fishery openings earlier this month, with some sockeye-directed openings this week. The Nass River Nisga'a fish wheels have been operating since June 1st, and to July 21st, just about 210,000 Nass sockeye have passed the fish wheels, which is slightly above average for that date. The current in-season forecast is for a return to Canada of 434,000 Nass sockeye, which is slightly below the average of about 600,000. The Nass Chinook return, similar to the Skeena, is well below average and similar to recent years, with just over 9,000 Chinook past the fish wheels as of July 21st, and an in-season estimate for a total return of about 18,000, compared to an average of about 30,000 since 1994. It's still early for other species, but initially looks similar to the Skeena, with steelhead catches above average so far, and pink catches at the wheel well below both average for an even year and the parent year of 2024. So we're seeing some trends in this year's salmon and steelhead returns that we weren't necessarily expecting or weren't forecasted for this year. And our fisheries advisor, Greg Taylor, wrote a really informative piece on why that's becoming more common and why it's getting harder to predict salmon returns. You can find a link to that article on our new fisheries resources page on the SkeenaWild website, where you'll also find links to other helpful resources that I use in these update videos, as well as fishing regulations, as I mentioned earlier. Spoiler, it has a lot to do with the changing environment that we're in and variable environmental conditions. And we're going to do a part 2 follow-up on environmental conditions shortly, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions or want to reach out to us, please get in touch at info@SkeenaWild.org.